intro music tonight. Welcome to another edition of Buck What You Heard. My name is Gene. You can reach me at Buck What You Heard. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, the usual suspect, the GM himself, Michael Pless. How you doing tonight, Michael?
Doing great, Gene. Glad to, finally we get together and talk some football. It's been a while, but yeah, I mean, we're moving closer to football season, which is nice. We're right in the middle of, the break period, so only a few more weeks, and then we're back at it to training camp, which will be exciting.
Yeah, man, you guys have done a great job on your show. I mean, you keep raising the bar, and I'm really impressed with what you guys have done. Eric Hardnett, what's going on? All Hands Galley, how you doing? Matthew Kitchell, how you doing, sir? Callie Buck, everybody, as you come in, I'm gonna make sure that I call you, give you guys a shout out because you guys make the show what it is, and I appreciate everybody. Matthew Kitchell, I will be in London for the Panthers game for sure, and I'm going to try to catch a home game because I have been lacking and slacking on that. So you will catch me at one of the games. You may even see me at camp in July. I know Michael Pless had put up a date, and I'm going to do my best to try to catch up with that. So, Mike, what about you? Are you going to be able to catch any games this year?
I'm gonna try. I mean, yeah, I definitely want to go to some. I think I was at least 5 last year, which was that was good for me. Got one of the 5 game packages, and it was a good experience. But yeah, definitely I try to make at least a few games every year. So definitely try to be there in attendance, and it should be an exciting year. I mean, we just have so many new faces and just a lot of things that are coming together, but you have a good core in place that I think can be better than most people think, and with the coaching staff, I mean, that everyone assumes is the best we've had in years. So it should be an exciting year. I mean, I can't wait to see what it comes together, and how this 53-man roster is going to be put forth. And like I say, it's always fluid, so it's always moving, but it's fun to see, just to see how the pieces are going to be put in place.
Yeah. I'm right there with you. I've been pretty indifferent throughout the offseason. There have been so many different Twitter battles, Facebook battles, just Bucs versus Bucs. I don't like this move. I like this move. And I'm going to tell you guys, in my opinion, what they've done in the offseason is going to be huge. If these guys can stay healthy, the guys that they've brought in, such as a Shaq Barrett, if these guys can stay healthy, these are names that you may not know, but I think you're going to know these names, just based on where they play and how they play.
Yeah, I agree with that. I like the offseason that they had. Again, couldn't address every need. Still have question marks at right guard and the offensive line, but obviously they're playing into a factor of the coaching staff going to help these guys and get them more developed and more cohesive as a unit. So, but I really like what they did with the secondary. I think that is something that they had to do. They definitely needed more talent back there, because it is a passing league, and that's where the good defenses, they have guys in place that can really make plays and cause turnovers. And that's something that they lacked last year. They couldn't intercept the ball. There just wasn't enough plays being made in that secondary. And now you go to a scheme that fits them more effectively. I think that's going to help them going forward. But yeah, there's a lot of depth back there, which is good. It's a young unit, but a lot of talent. So that's a positive. And then I like what they've done with the front 4, or front 7, I should say, adding a Devin White, adding Ndamukong Suh, getting a guys like Shaq Barrett. You still have guys like Carl Nassib and Noah Spence that could, really benefit from this new scheme. You still have Vita Vea, who looked promising towards the end of the year. So there's a lot of pieces, and even like a guy like Will Golston could come out of nowhere and maybe be more productive in this scheme. So a lot of moving parts. They still have to get used to this new defensive scheme, but From what I'm hearing, it looks like everything is heading in the right direction. And really, that's all you can hope for as a fan, just making sure they're going the right way.
Yeah, I am right there with you. I think one of the big things that is on everybody's minds, I mean, when you look at Dirk Cutter's body of work, how he coached in key situations, how did he handle key situations? How did the Bucs benefit from what he did or lack of benefit from what he did? And I think we're going to see right off the bat whether coaching played a huge part in where this team is. Because we talked about this off camera. You look at Quan Alexander is gone, and they overpaid for him in San Francisco. You've got an Adam Humphries, a guy who was the number 4 receiver in Tampa, and he gets paid number 2 receiver money. You've got guys like Gerald McCoy, which is a totally different scenario. I'm not going to go too much into that, but basically Joe McCoy's situation was different. I think they felt like they needed somebody else, and I'm going to leave it at that. But I'm going to go on the record saying that I like Joe McCoy. I've always liked Joe McCoy since he was drafted. And just if you listen to what he said, I think Rick Stroud played that his message to Tampa. You got to respect that. I don't care what anybody says. You can have your disagreements or opinion of him, but again, he hasn't done anything in my eyes that warrants some of the slander that he's gotten.
No, I agree with that. I like Joe McCoy too. I just think what they wanted was they wanted a different fit, and Ndamukong Suh is that perfect fit for what they want to put on the field. It's a different attitude. It's a different mentality. Not saying McCoy didn't have that, but you just listen to Ndamukong Suh, and he's a perfect fit for what this coaching staff is all about. And I think it was just money played a factor into it. So you save $4 million on the cap by getting Suh, and I think Joe McCoy was just ready for a new beginning himself. I think he was ready for it was time. He was ready for a change, and I think he just didn't want to go through. He just felt like it was time to move on, and that's what the Bucs did. And Bruce Arians said it from day one. If a guy's not fully committed to what the team wants to do and is not on the same page as that cause, then they're likely not going to be here. And that's what you've seen with, guys like Deshaun Jackson and et cetera. They're not here anymore. Yeah,
you're 100% right. The one thing that I really appreciated was that there wasn't animosity on that last interview he had. There wasn't a lot of animosity. But anyway, right. Joe McCoy is a Carolina Panther. I'm going to leave him alone. We're going to kind of move on from there. A lot of the things that we've seen from this offseason, I think, and I would say the past 3 seasons, you've got a lot of players that are very versatile. They can play in different positions. And I think that's the one thing that we've said this over the past 3-4 seasons about Jason Light, that he gets guys that are versatile. And these are guys that Bruce Arians loves, players that are versatile, players that can get out there, play in different positions if called upon, but guys that I think will benefit this offense and defensive side of the ball both. Again, and I go back to players like MJ Stewart, some of the players that they got last year, players that are going to have to go out and play for a position. I believe that there are going to be a lot of players that may be playing in a different spot than where they were, just to try to keep a spot on this team. So what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you see the versatility in a lot of the players that the Bucs have brought in over the past few seasons?
Yeah, I think the versatility is definitely going to start in the secondary, and then you look at just the way they're going to use their front 7 now with defensive ends typically now going to be called outside linebackers. Basically, they're just stand up, or they can put their hand in the dirt as well. So there's some versatility there in the way they're going to be played. Some are going to be asked to drop back into coverage. Some aren't. Most of them are just going to be able to just go forward and get after the quarterback. But you have some guys, even Ndamukong Suh, a guy who can play all across the defensive line. He can play, and D tackle, whatever you need him to do. He can play various positions. Same thing with Vita Vea.
Right.
And then you look at mainly the secondary, I think, is where they're going to use a lot of different looks and aspects of that, with a guy like Sean Murphy-Bunting who can play inside or outside. Same thing with a Mike Edwards who can play safety or he can come up and play nickel. MJ Stewart is another one that can do that. Justin Evans. So pretty much all the safety, guys that they have can be versatile and come down and play as corners, whether that's inside or maybe on the outside as well. So there's a lot of, like I said in the beginning, a lot of moving parts that this defense is going to feature. And then if you look at the offensive side of the ball and the way that versatility works, it would probably be more so with the running backs and the tight ends. They're going to use the tight ends probably a little bit differently, especially with O.J. Howard. And then you have Cameron Brate, who can both play outside as receivers, or you can put them, on the line, for blocking or vice versa. So those guys are going to be moved around a lot. Same thing with Chris Godwin and Mike Evans. Those guys can play in the slot. Or on the outside, I'm trying to think. And then as far as the running backs, they're going to be used more as receivers. They're going to be used more just in different ways. I mean,
right.
just a way to get them the ball in space. So those are just some little things of the versatility. And then I think, across the offensive line, obviously, those guys have to be versatile, being able to play inside or outside, whether it's guard or tackle. I don't think you're going to see a rotation of guards this year, which is good.
Yeah.
You're not going to see that.
No experiments.
You're going to have guys no experiments. Maybe the only experiment you might see is maybe, the quarterback that they got, Nick Fitzgerald, maybe playing some tight end and playing on special teams, just trying to, utilize that Taysom Hill role, that the Saints use. So that could be something. But other than that, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. But yeah, versatility is definitely a key part, and that's key for any team because it just allows you to be more diverse with your roster and how you construct it, whether you're keeping, 5 receivers versus 6 receivers,
right.
How many defensive backs you want to carry, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
So that's how it all goes down.
Yeah. The one thing that I really appreciate, especially on defense, is they went strictly for speed. This defense, what they've done from last year to this year, and this is just on paper, but they've increased the speed of the overall defense. I mean, I was looking at Vita Vea running. I can't remember the running back. He ran him down. He ran down a tight end too. Mm-hmm. And you that's not regular to see a DT do stuff do the things that he's doing. I feel like this guy is healthy. He's got a year under his belt. I stand by the move to draft him when they did. And I feel like that's going to pay dividends if he can stay healthy.
Yeah, for sure. And Bruce Arians is all about speed. I think that was, obvious of what the theme of this offseason was. He wanted to get faster. He wanted to get bigger, especially in the secondary, bigger up front, which they accomplished. So, all that plays a factor. Size and speed, that's something you really can't teach. You
can't
can
coach speed.
Guys, you can't coach speed and you can't coach size. But what you can do is coach these guys on where to be as far as position and, technique and et cetera. All those things you can coach. So it's kind of like the Bill Parcells way of building a team. It's about getting superior athletes and then, molding those athletes into what you want them to be as players and then just putting them in the right spots to be successful. And then you have something good potentially.
Yeah, we're kind of all over the road. Matthew Kitchell brought up an interesting point. Bruce Arians has never had wide receivers like this. I can tell you that Bruce Arians has never had tight ends like this. And yes. Just when you look at his rosters as he's been a head coach, he's never had anything like this on offense. And I
Right.
feel like that this guy can do a lot with what he has. And he's a good coach. And you're going to see a lot of things that I know a lot of people have looked at this team and they're like, oh, they're not going to do anything. But when you look at the talent that this team had on both sides of the ball, I think it was just mismanaged. I mean, just kind of going back. Again, we'll know for sure as we get closer to preseason, get into preseason, as we get into camp and we see who's healthy when the season starts. I really believe this team has a chance to really surprise a lot of people that, that are pretty much written them off for next year.
Yeah, I agree with that. My main thing is, and I've been on record, saying 8-8 at the least. I think that's what their minimum is this year. I think they can at least get 8 wins, just based on what they have currently, and based on the coaching staff that is there. Now they can take that to another level if it just depends on like you said, health. Injuries play a huge role. If they can stay healthy. And then, how fast can they pick up these new schemes and how fast can they come together? Offense, defense, and special teams, can that all come together pretty quickly? And you can find rhythm, with your quarterback and Jameis Winston and get can the running game be an improvement? Is that going to take a next step up? So all those things play a role. Can the defense be at least average to above average if possible? If they can, then this team is, sky's the limit, because we know offensively they have the pieces to put up points. I mean, you look at what they did last year, and they had a lot of inconsistencies last year on offense with, just the quarterback, switch and quarterbacks on and off. And then you had the offensive line that was, probably average to below average, and they still put up one of the best passing offenses in the league. Granted, their red zone offense wasn't quite there, and then they had, they couldn't run the ball at all, so they were kind of one-dimensional. Then defensively, you just really didn't have anything consistently where, 1 week it was great, next week they gave up 40 points. So it's just about finding that right, mix. If they can do that quickly and come together and learn what they're being asked to do, then yeah, they have a great shot of being better. But right now, I mean, I would say 8-8 is the least I see floor. As far as the floor as far as wins goes.
It's interesting you say that. Like I said, if anybody knows who's following me on Twitter, if you're not following me on Twitter, hit me up on at Buck What You Heard. I'm good with that. My guy Michael Pless, Real Bucs Talk. If you're not following, you're missing the boat. Get on there. I mean, get on Twitter right now. If you're not doing anything else, get on Twitter and follow this guy. What he's going to be talking about, I mean, very intuitive and this is probably, Real Bucs Talk is probably the most underrated podcast of all the Bucs podcasts out there. And I'm not saying that because you're on the show. I'm saying that because it's true. And what you guys talk about, what I found following this guy through the drafts, it's just amazing. You would think he's in the draft room with some of these teams, just the way that he does his thing. So if you're not following him, please go out there on Twitter right now at Real Bucs Talk, hit him up, follow him. And, he's a permanent fixture in Buck What You Heard. I mean, moving forward, I mean, as we get closer to the season, we'll get a little bit more regular and you'll get to see more of him. But this is my guy, right? This is the GM. And he's called the GM for a reason. So I'm just putting it out there. If you're not following him, you should be. But, getting back to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, a guy that we haven't really talked about, Jameis Winston. I was going to wear your shirt. I'm going to wear your shirt. First game of the season, I will be the follow me if you want to win shirt. I've got that shirt. I love that shirt. And that's going to be that's a good one. Yeah, that's going to be my shirt. First game of the season. I'm holding back because that's when I want to wear. But Jameis Winston. I really believe in Jameis Winston, and I know a lot of people have written him off because of the off-field issues that he's had and the alleged interceptions that he's had. But I think this deserves a do-over, only because you've got a coach that believes in him, a coach that's not going to set him up for failure, a coach that's not going to pull him after a few hard times. This is a coach that's behind him. This is my guy, and I'm going to ride with him, wherever we go. I think that Jameis Winston, he won a national championship. I think that the coach that he had then, believed in him. I really believe that Jameis Winston, at the end of his career in Tampa, whenever that may be, he will break almost every passing record. And, I know it's not a big deal to a lot of people, but you will have to mention Jameis Winston's name at the end of this season because of some of the records he's going to break. He's due to break quite a few. And I know these are individual statistics, but I believe that we have a very solid quarterback in Jameis Winston. And I believe that he's a guy that can do a lot of things if given the best opportunity or put in the best opportunity to succeed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that. I think it's, you look at this season, it's a pivotal year for him. I think this is probably, what's the key to having success? I think it goes back to your support system. I think everybody, needs a good support system in order to have success. Obviously it starts with yourself, but if you have those right people around you and you have, obvious, backing and support consistently, I think that, foundation. And I think Jameis finally has that foundation that he's been looking for. And I think he'll definitely get it this year. I think this is probably the best coaches he's had around him. And then you look at the talent, that is surrounding him. It is there. I think the offensive line is good enough. You have the emergence of a Peyton Barber and a Ronald Jones who seems to be, gaining steam. If those guys are good enough, and I think Jameis, he's got everything in the toolbox to be successful. Now it's just about, knowing that you don't have to do everything, knowing that you don't have to make every play. I think he's going to be more successful, and I think, mechanically, I think it's going to get there, and I think he's going to be more consistent because they're going to ask him to do things that he does well and not put him in bad situations. I think the defense, it's going to do their part in trying to, get the ball back. And now if he can just play, the same way and play team football and not put the defense in bad situations, I think you got something cooking there where you can build on that, and he can really become that elite quarterback that we know he's capable of.
Yeah, absolutely. And I like that you brought up Peyton Barber. I love Peyton Barber. A lot of people do not like Peyton Barber. And I've had these debates. I think if the Bucs had committed to the run and put Peyton Barber in positions to succeed, I think he would have been a better running back than what you saw. He should have been 1,000-yard rusher. I know that's not a big deal to some people. As I mentioned different players, but I really do believe that Peyton Barber is going to be an integral part, if he can stay healthy, of this offense. I think putting him in a position to where he can run the ball, they're putting him in a chance to get those extra yards. Yards per carry should go up. I expect him to do big things. As for Ronald Jones, everybody, I would say 80% of the people in Bucs Nation have written off Ronald Jones. I think Ronald Jones was just in the wrong place at the wrong time. I believe that what he's capable of doing, the tools that he has, if he's put in the right position, I believe that Ronald Jones can make some big moves as well. He's a guy, and if I can identify, I'm going to go ahead and do this because we haven't gotten to this part, this into the season, but Ronald Jones is somebody I'm going to be closely watching. Devin White is somebody I'm going to be closely watching. And Ndamukong Suh is somebody I will be closely watching. O.J. Howard is another player that I will be closely watching. These are guys that I feel can have breakout years. Oh, Noah Spence, Noah Spence, a guy that everybody has pretty much written off. Here's a guy that I believe has not forgotten how to play football. I believe he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, and I believe that he's going to have a breakout year. I'm going to go ahead and say that because of what I've gotten to see from him prior to him getting injured. I believe if he can stay healthy, I think he can be very beneficial to this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think you nailed it right there. Ronald Jones and Noah Spence, I think if they can get, and maybe even add, Vernon Hargreaves, I think those three guys, it's very crucial for them to have success this year. And I think they can. I love what I'm hearing from Ronald Jones. I like that his confidence seems to be coming back. I think they're just letting him, show his natural talent and just play, how he's capable of. And I think if he can get anywhere close to what he was doing at USC, I think the Bucs offense is in a new level, a new gear that we haven't seen yet. So because he's that perfect complement to what Peyton Barber gives you.
That change of pace.
That will be some. Yeah, very. And a guy that can just get the ball and he can change the game in one play. And we don't have many of those guys. I mean, you have a few here and there, but Ronald Jones, he's got that electric speed and can be a difference maker. And then you look at the defensive side of the ball and Noah Spence. I think Noah's just had some very tough luck. It's nothing from, not his lack of effort or hard work. I think he's one of the hardest workers on the team. I think he wants to be great. So it's not an issue of character or any of that nature. It's just bad luck, bad injuries at the wrong time, just starting to find a groove, and then he gets hurt or has a setback. So I feel like, now in a scheme that really suits him, a scheme where he can, pretty much play off of, guys around him and really use that speed off the edge. I think that's going to really benefit him going forward and showing his versatility as far as being that outside linebacker that can, drop back into coverage as well. And then you look at, Vernon Hargreaves. I mean, this is make or break for him going into his option year, which is next year. And, he's got stiff competition because those rookies are going to be coming for starting jobs. So, he knows he has to ball out.
Yeah. When you talk about Vernon Hargreaves, here's a guy and his strength is playing man press. And you never got to see a lot of man press out of Vernon Hargreaves in his career as a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I really believe that here's a guy who's going to quietly sneak up on a lot of people, given the opportunity to do what his strengths were at University of Florida. And if you are a University of Florida fan, you know what I'm talking about with Vernon Hargreaves and all the players in the SEC that he was able to face. So, again, I haven't given up on Vernon Hargreaves. He wasn't my choice, but you know what? He's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. I'm on board. Let's see this guy get what he deserves, and I'm all in. He went to Plant. I went to Hillsborough. Whatever. Let's put that aside. It don't matter. This guy's a Tampa Bay Buccaneer. Let's go.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And again, it goes back to the themes, not the theme, the scheme fit of, Vernon Hargreaves playing in a press coverage now. That's going to be huge for him because that's what he did at Florida. So that's going to be a big thing. And that goes with the other corners as well, like Carlton Davis. And it's going to be fun, just having, a very aggressive defense that is, going to be playing to their strengths and not reacting. Instead of they're going to be proactive and make things happen. They're going to force things on the offense instead of letting the offense dictate, what they want to do. It's going to be the other way around, which is going to be refreshing. But again, it's all talk right now.
Yeah.
Everything is, kind of, you got to take it with
a grain of salt.
A grain of salt. Yeah, a grain of salt pretty much, because we have to wait and see what the pads do. That's what it's about.
That's where it comes up. You know what? I'm gonna say this. If we look at the past, I would say 3 seasons, and we look at the secondary, the players that they brought in the secondary, the majority of these guys are man press. Their strength was man press. It wasn't like playing in the zone or it was totally different in zone. Being able to play man press, get this guy off his route, and just cover him like a cornerback is supposed to do. And when these guys were brought in, they were asked to do something that they didn't have the strength they were that's not the strength of what they were drafted for. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's kind of what you see from it's like they were mismanaged. They weren't put in a position to be successful, and that's kind of what I see. MJ Stewart especially, man press. I mean, you can go back and look at his film all throughout his collegiate career. That's what he did. And what they're asking him to do now is outside of the realm of what he was supposed to be doing. You're supposed to be drafting players. If this is your coach plays a lot of zone. These are the guys that you should have brought in. I have been confused by a lot of this, but again, it's all in the past. We've got a different regime here, and I believe that they can benefit from a lot of the secondary that we've had in the past. I really do. I think those guys that they drafted prior to Bruce Arians getting here, prior to the defensive coordinator getting here, I think he can get use out of a lot of these guys.
Yeah, for sure. I think, the main thing is, and, I think this is why the past coaching staff and the current front office didn't see eye to eye, because they were, getting talent. They were getting players that they thought, coaches were going to use these guys in certain ways, and it just never happened. You had, coaches like Mike Smith and Dirk Cutter who were so set in their ways and how they wanted to do things and wanted to, force players to fit, square pegs into round holes. And, it didn't work out. You look how they used the rookies last year. They barely played any of the guys. You had Ronald Jones, a second round pick, never really got a chance to show what he's capable of. Same thing with, Alex Kappa and, others. So there was really no player development that was occurring with this team. And that's something that's going to change under Bruce Arians and this coaching staff, with what they've done with the 2 practices that they're going to have. So, going on at the same time, that's going to be a huge benefit to these young rookies and young players that, won't see the reps usually. Usually you only get, 5 to 8 reps per practice. And now you're getting, the same amount that these regular guys are getting, around 40 or so snaps. That plays a huge factor into finding, hidden gems or diamonds, like, Bruce Arians likes to say.
The cool thing about this, and I'm glad you brought this up, is you have to bring your A game to practice. If you're going to be noticed, you have to come out there and give it 100%. Practice is important to get noticed. And being able to have the practice set up the way they are. Go ahead. I know you have something you were getting ready to.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, that was a huge factor in how bad this team has been over the last, 3 to 5 years, or going back even to a decade. The lack of intensity in practice, the lackadaisical effort that was shown in practice. You had guys from, TV crews that would go and watch practice and then they go watch another team, and it's just night and day different. And that's not a good sign when you're watching practice and these guys are just, going through the motions, it looks like, and not really putting out, the kind of intensity that you need to put forward, Wednesday through Friday, going into game day on Sunday. Just the preparation was just not where it needed to be, because really, when you look at it, Sunday should be the easiest part of the week. That is when, you're supposed to have the most fun, and it really should be, just going out and executing what you worked on, Monday through Friday. But exactly, you got to have that intense level, all the way through that week, or else you're going to get smacked, 48-3 by the Bears. That's just how it works. You got to be on every detail. Every attention to detail is very important. You have to be on it, or else you're going to end up with back-to-back 5-11 seasons and going the wrong way.
Yeah, totally. Me and you, we're on the same page here. I think that, what we saw from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in the past, I would say the past decade, I think you're spot on that. What we've seen compared to what you're seeing right now they're 2 totally different things. You've got a guy that is a free agent acquisition, undrafted free agent. He can come in here and win a position because of his hard work. Because a coach is looking at him, maybe he may not be in the main practice, but they're like, okay, look at this guy here. Take a look at this guy. He's out here practicing. Look at what he can do. Let's have him go up against somebody else. Now, you had guys that were just pretty much standing around. There were a lot of guys. I mean, when you think about like, with Dirk Cutter's practices, you had a lot of guys that were just kind of standing around and they weren't able to do what they were supposed to do, like you have with this practice. So I'm really excited about this, and I think that a lot of good things are going to come from it. It looks like, are you there? I didn't lose you, did I?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah, it looks like it froze up for some reason. Hold on one second here. So if you'll give me a moment, I just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on that. And, do you think these practices will benefit the Bucs, moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's going to be a great thing because, like I said earlier, you just have a better opportunity of figuring out what these guys can do, on the football field. If you're watching them and you can see it, you can see these guys make plays and you understand exactly what they can provide on the field. I think that's going to be a huge factor going forward, and it's going to make your whole team better, because competition brings out the best. Iron sharpens iron, and if these guys are getting better daily because they're getting more reps, then that's going to improve your bottom of the roster and also your practice squad. So that it's just going to make the week better, and that's what I talked about, in season, making these practices tougher during in season and making sure the right intensity is being played out and being matched at a high level. That's going to be important going into Sunday, making sure these guys are, one, ready to play, and two, making sure they know where to be on the field and are on the right spots so this team can be successful consistently, not just, 1 week and then it's, blow out the next week.
Yeah. And the one thing that I do want to point out, this is the majority of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers roster. I know a lot of people are not happy with some of the players that were brought in. This is the roster. You gotta be all in now. It's time for everybody to put aside, your guy didn't make it here. That's okay. This is what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have to work with. This is who they're working with. Let's go. And it's really frustrating to me when people are still going, oh, well, my guy didn't get picked up and I don't think this team's going to. No, if you're a true Buccaneers fan, if this is your team, you shouldn't be worried about who you didn't get. You should be looking at who you do have and how they can help benefit this team to win games. That is probably the most frustrating thing for me throughout the offseason. And especially this year where I didn't have a dog in the race, I was like, okay, I'm indifferent. Oh, they brought in Ndamukong Suh. Ndamukong Suh has number 93. Mm-hmm. I'm good with that. I'm good. I don't care. I really don't care. I don't care if he was wearing number 99. If this is going to help the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win games in the regular season, in the middle of the season where they've been losing games, if this guy can help you win games, this is who you want on your team. Okay? I'm sick of, oh, my guy, you should have drafted this guy. You know what? Who cares? That guy's on another team. If you want to worry about him, go root for that team. Okay? I'm sick of this. Right. I really am. I'm at my wit's end. I was not happy with the Bucs drafting Devin White. I'm going to be upfront and honest about it. But you know what? I will make the Devin White apology tour just like I did the Kendall Beckwith apology tour, because that's the guy that's going to help this team win games. Okay? So that's what's important to me, is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning games. I'm sick of not going to the playoffs. I'm sick of losing to the Saints or the Panthers or the Atlanta Falcons and not winning the NFC South Championship. I'm sick of that. I don't care who's on this team. It comes down to winning games, getting to the playoffs, winning games in the playoffs. So, if you're so caught up with who's on this team as opposed to winning games, there's a huge problem here.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the number one factor should be winning games. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, that's what anyone gives a shit about is wins.
Absolutely.
That's how. Yeah, I mean, and for this team, I mean, it's been a struggle. Let's be honest. Going on 10 to 11 years now since we made the playoffs, and it's time to get this team back in the right direction, and that's what it's about.
Yeah, winning covers a multitude of sins, and I will say this: when the Bucs start winning games, things are going to start to change. You'll stop talking about who's on this team and how this team can win more games. And I think that's what it all comes down to. If you're a season ticket holder, if you're a regular season person that gets to go to maybe 2 or 3 games, you deserve a playoff win. You deserve a playoff berth. As long as you've been a Buccaneer fan, if you've been a Buccaneer fan in the past decade, then you deserve this. I mean, and you can go all the way back to the Super Bowl or wherever wherever you became a Buc fan, you deserve a playoff win. You deserve a playoff berth. And I'm sick of my guy didn't make it, so I'm going to trash this team. I'm going to bring this up at the most inopportune time that Derwin James didn't get drafted like he should have. You know what? Derwin James is a Charger. And you know what? I don't care about the Chargers. I don't care what his stats are. I don't care. We've got Vita Vea here. And Vita Vea is who we should be concerned with. Okay? Yeah. So it's going to come together. I believe that we have the right coaching staff. I believe that we have the right players here. And I really believe that if everybody buys in, everybody stays healthy, I think this team is going to be a problem for a lot of the teams on the schedule that we have in 2019. That's my personal opinion.
No, I agree with that. I think, it's going to be a tough schedule. I mean, you got 6 road games in a row, so, that's going to be fun to see. But, yeah, I just like, the overall vibe that, the coaching staff is bringing, the confidence that they're instilling into these players. And, it just feels different. But, we said that in the past. We thought, it was going to be different with, other regimes. But, this is probably the most experience we've had, as far as from coaching all the way down, as far as the roster. Again, it's still a young team overall, but you just have a lot of knowledge in that room, from the experienced coaching staff to, certain players on the team that are going to be presented in new ways that they just haven't yet been in their career for the most part. You look at Levante David, a guy that's, probably the most underrated linebacker in the league, and he might have his best season this year because of the things that they're going to ask him to do from a production standpoint and being aggressive and attacking the football. So that, that's a positive in itself, and just really seeing how far they can take these guys to new levels and new heights. You look at Mike Evans, like he hasn't even reached the surface of what he can be. And it's kind of crazy because, he's had, 4 straight 1,000-yard seasons and, over 1 million touchdowns already. So the potential is there, and of, how far they can take it, we don't know. But, Bruce Arians has said, I mean, this is a talented roster, and now it's just about putting those things into place and really see what you have as a team. And, if they don't get it done this year, then obviously we'll figure out, it was a talent issue, or, maybe the coaches just, didn't have the right mix, or it was, injuries and et cetera, because there's all sorts of different circumstances that come into play. But it should be a fun year. I think it's just exciting to finally know for a fact that these guys are going to be put in the right spots consistently and being able to be successful week in and week out.
Yeah, I'm right on board with you right here, man. I think that's what we That's what we're seeing, man. And I believe that Bruce Arians will hold players accountable. You will have to bring your A game if you want a spot on that field to play with these Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think Bruce Arians is going to get rid of the nonchalant, it's okay to lose because we'll get it next time. And you know what? I'm going to bring this up because I'm glad we're at this kind of sector in the show. Ndamukong Suh. I don't know if you've listened to the Mic'd Up. If you've had a chance to listen to Ndamukong Suh mic'd up in these practices, you should be excited because the knock on Ndamukong Suh all these years was he didn't care about the guy next to him. He didn't care about teaching other guys what they need to do. He didn't care. He's all about him. He's selfish. And you know what? What I've learned just from listening to him is if these guys want to learn, he's going to teach them. And all the things that all the negative that we heard about this guy coming in, I have a hard time believing the negative that we've heard about him, just based on what I've seen from him, how he's interacted with the players around him, how he's accepted, how he's bought into this defense this new defense, and what his abilities will be, what his role will be in this new defense. And I'm excited. I mean, I was okay with Ndamukong Suh coming, but now coming to Tampa, seeing him here now, I'm good with it. I'm really good with it.
Oh yeah. I love Ndamukong Suh. He was, one of the guys we were, me and Mark were looking at when, go back to that 2010 draft.
Right.
He was rated a little bit higher, and I thought the Bucs might have had a chance to get him, but then you look at Joe McCoy and understanding what they wanted as far as scheme wise. I get it. He was a prototypical 3 technique and a guy that could fit, Raheem Morris' scheme at the time, who was the head coach.
Right.
So it made a lot of sense. But Ndamukong Suh has always been a favorite of mine. I think he is widely misconcepted or misconstrued as far as his personality on the field and also off the field. I think he's one of the more outstanding humans that we have in this game, in the league, just based on, the charity work that he does off the field, and very, very good guy. He's completely different off the field versus on the field. I mean, when you're on the field, he buys into that mentality that you have to have. I mean, he's got that dog-like mentality that you just have to be aggressive and attack and get after it. And, that's just how he plays. I mean, he plays to the whistle and he plays very hard. And, that's just kind of the style that he portrays to have, and he does it very successfully. So, even in the mic up clip, he talks about it. He's like, it's just a mentality. It's about finding weaknesses in your opponent and going out there and attacking it with certain moves that you know how to do very well.
Right.
And if you can do that, you can be very successful in this league. It's just about, finding the mismatches, and it's a mismatch league.
Yeah.
It's offense and defense. It's about finding, weaknesses and strengths, playing to your strengths and hiding your weaknesses. That's what it comes down to in football. It's a very simple game, but at the same time, it takes total team effort to get those wins. But at the same time, you got to have some individual players that can win one-on-ones, because if they can't, then you might be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, most definitely. And what I'm looking at is you call the play, defensive coordinator calls the play. From the time the ball is snapped to the whistle, execution is important. Execution is important. I can't stress that enough. And what we saw last year were a ton of missed tackles, a ton of being out of position, a ton of no communication, a ton of lack of communication. And that's what we saw last year. And what's really interesting is just hearing the word communication this year under Bruce Arians. And these guys, we haven't even got to camp yet. And these guys are communicating with each other. That was what really struck me in some of like Jenna Lane or Greg Allman Rick Stroud, a lot of the same guys that were reporting things, I was hearing the same thing. And I was hearing that word communication. And that struck me as odd because I know that was a huge issue for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And we can go back the last 2 seasons where the defense had issues with communication. So simplifying the defense, putting players in the best position for them, holding players accountable, so many different things that we're seeing this year. And that's what gives fans hope, is that we're seeing these different things, and it's possible that this team can buy into this and actually elevate their game and put this team in a position to win games.
Yeah. I mean, that's what it comes down to. It's, and like you said, hope. I mean, that's all we're asking for as fans, is just to have some hope, and hopefully, this team can start getting towards that right direction, which is the playoffs, and ultimately winning a Super Bowl. That's what it's all about. That's what it comes down to. But I mean, you look at just the overall roster, and they have guys on this team that can be those big time playmakers that we need them to be. Winning those one-on-one matchups, like I said, and now you have the coaching staff in place that pretty much understands what it wants and how it wants to be played, and they can figure out things and really make adjustments on the fly. I think that's probably the most exciting thing that I'm looking forward to, is the in-game adjustments that we're going to be seeing this season, especially from Todd Bowles, who I hear is probably one of the better, halftime game adjustment type of coordinators. I mean, the things that he can do in the second half, I hear is amazing. And that has me pretty fired up to see how that's going to shake out and how it's going to play.
Yeah. And I do have a question for you. And I'm glad you brought up Todd Bowles. When you look at Todd Bowles and you look at the personnel that Todd Bowles has had as a head coach, how would you compare what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have on defense to what Todd Bowles has had to coach and his tenure as a head coach? How would you compare those two defenses?
Well, I think it's a little different. I mean, just because of the different type of personnel. But I think, the personnel that he has here in Tampa is very similar to what he's had in the past, whether it's the Arizona Cardinals or the Jets. You look at, corners and safeties play a big role in his scheme. And I think that's what played a part into the draft of, 3 secondary players and adding pieces to that mix. Because he wants size and speed on the outside. He wants guys that can play physical and be a disruption to the offense, whether it's playing press man coverage or playing zone or vice versa. And then you look at the front seven. He wants speed, and he's got that in his linebackers, guys that can fly to the football and make plays. Up front, he wants big guys that can take up space, but also get after the quarterback and be disruptive up front. So there's a lot of versatility. I think that's something that, he's shown, and he's going to present a lot of different looks and a lot of blitz packages that we haven't seen before. And it's going to be exciting because, like I said, he's going to force the issue. They're not a defense that is going to sit back and just let the offense do what they want. It's about forcing the issue and making things happen and causing turnovers. Number one thing is forcing turnovers and scoring touchdowns, scoring touchdowns off of those turnovers and finding ways to be a help to your offense and make it easier on them, so that you can play, complete team football and complementary football. And that leads to success and wins.
Yeah. And the one thing that I will say, I mean, we can go back past a decade. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense has been a liability, not being able to close out a game. Quarterback, case in point, Josh Freeman goes out, gets a lead, goes off the field. All the defense has to do is get 3 and out, get the ball back in the offense's hand. They can run the clock out, whatever. That's normally the scenario. What I've seen from this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense over the past decade is not being able to consistently close out games. Now, I will say this. This defense this year, I'm optimistic about this defense because I believe that you have a good defensive coordinator, somebody that can identify talent and put players in positions to succeed. And I believe you can get more out of your defense just based on that. Now, people may come back to me and say, hey, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers may have had a good year this year and this year. Yeah, I understand that. But if you look consistently, and you can go back to 2010 and look at this team moving forward all the way to 2019, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers have not been able to consistently close out games when a quarterback gives them the lead. And tape don't lie. You can go back and look at all the tape you want to. And just looking at this defense this year, this is the first time I've been comfortable enough to say this, that I believe that they figured it out. I believe that they have the talent. I believe they have the coaching that they could actually put something together and close out wins that that the offense gives them the opportunity to have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's been a big thing of the past is learning and knowing how to finish games. I think that's been one of our biggest issues over the last several years is, finding ways to win games instead of finding ways to lose games. That's the biggest thing. And I think that is something that, this coaching staff has talked about, very often, just knowing situational football, knowing, what is going on at the certain moment and playing in the moment and not looking ahead or looking behind you, looking in the past, always staying in the moment and understanding, this is what I have to do, and this is what is needed to be done in order to win games. I think that is something that is going to be very stressed and worked on, making sure that this team is a smart football team and also disciplined and understanding what has to be, what has to be put out there to be successful, I think. And they're heading in that direction just based on the work that they've had over the offseason. But again, it's all talk right now. We have to wait and see and see how it materializes.
Yeah. And again, the one guy that I'm really going to be watching and this kind of hinges on a lot of things is Devin White. Devin White being able to cover as a linebacker is going to be huge. And we look at Quan Alexander, and I'm not taking guys, just want you to understand this. I'm not taking anything away from Quan Alexander, but not being able to cover consistently is a liability as a linebacker. And I feel like what they've been able to do with Devin White is go out and upgrade that position to a guy that went and made $56 million with the 49ers. And I'm not 100% convinced that this guy was worth that money. And I'm not trying to count anybody else's money, but what I will say is that I believe Devin White being able to cover is going to be huge, especially against teams like the Saints, teams like the Carolina Panthers with Christian McCaffrey, and basically the NFC South. And we're going to face a lot of talented offensive teams this year. And I believe that, we have the talent to do that. I love the linebacker core. I'm happy with them. It's a possibility that that Kendall Beckwith could be back in the linebacker core. I'm not 100% convinced that will happen, but if it does happen, that's an added bonus. So, again, this defense, they've got a lot of pieces in place, and I really believe that they've set themselves up in a position where they can be successful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And Devin White's a perfect fit for, what they want to do defensively. He's got tremendous speed. And like we said earlier, this offseason was all about getting faster, and they definitely have done that. And that's something that is needed in this division because you face teams like the Saints and the Falcons and the Panthers. All those teams have a lot of speed and they can beat you in different ways. So you got to have guys that can, match up and guys that can take things away. And Devin White is one of those players. So, I was with you, Gene. I was one of the guys that was against Devin White at number 5. But when you really dig when you dig deep into it and you look at it from, every angle, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. I mean, and again, we can go back to looking at Quan Alexander, and how there were times where he freelanced to make plays. We looked at Quan Alexander, and Quan Alexander made splash plays, but he wasn't consistent throughout 4 quarters of football. Would you agree with that statement?
Quan, I think Quan's problem was just, I think you just said it. I mean, freelancing. I think that was his biggest issue. He just didn't really respond to the coaching, and really wasn't on the details like he needed to be. Jumped gaps, and was sort of, over pursuit, with his speed. So that played a factor. But yeah, I mean, he just wasn't worth that kind of contract that, he received from the 49ers. But, wish him, the best of luck going forward.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. But again, you've got a guy now. You've drafted a linebacker who is an alpha dog, and a linebacker that is willing to try to take control of the defense, to be the quarterback of the defense. Let's put it that way. And I'm good with that. And so, where I'm at right now is this is our team. And until they bring somebody else in, this is the team that we have to work with. I realize the roster is fluid, but I believe that the team that we have right now, these guys buy in, these guys can stay healthy. I think this team can win some games. I think they can win some games that people have written them off for. And as I look at this schedule, the 6 away games, if the Bucs can come out with a winning record with these 6 away games, I think that puts them in a very good position to vie for a playoff spot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. It's all about fast start. That's the key to everything. You got to start fast, but then you also have to continue to play at a consistent level. You got to continue to rise and progress as the season goes forward, and not take steps backwards. That's the whole key to a successful season.
Yeah, most definitely. So, I'm not going to really get into what your thoughts on records or who's going to make the team, but and folks, thank you so much. The chat has been lit. I'm actually going to go to the chat and just kind of roll call everybody that's in here. And Michael Pless, as usual, the co-host. I could never replace him with a better. He's irreplaceable, basically. Couldn't replace him with a better co-host. I appreciate your thoughts on this, man. I know that, when we look at this, we're just kind of guessing or kind of looking at this team and how we think that it could come out. But nobody's an insider. Nobody knows for sure what this Tampa Bay Buccaneers defense or offense, special teams, is going to look like. But what we can do is look at what Jason Light has gone out and done, the players that he's brought in, and the versatility that these players have. And we can look at what they've done on film and get an idea of how they will fit. But we won't know for sure until after we get into preseason to get an idea of how these players are going to play out. So, again, I'm happy to have Michael on. Michael, your insight is spot on most of the time. I should say all the time, because I can't think of a time when it wasn't. But this is something that I'm really super excited about. But again, I'm going to give a shout out, Matthew Kitchell, Buck the World 2.0, Bucs fan 727, Willie Horace, Brandon Fuller, Buccaneer Bruce, Tim 2902, All Hands Galley. If you haven't gotten a chance to check out his podcast, he has put up a few podcasts of his own. All Hands Galley, big Bucs fan, longtime Bucs fan. Be sure to check him out. Let me see. Eric Hardnett. Let's see. XLU Garvey, longtime listener. What's going on, man? I would like to thank you for getting in the chat and giving your opinion. So I appreciate that. Willie Horace, always in the chat. Always bringing great information, and very much appreciated. Demand, great content, always bringing up great thoughts. KG for life. Thank you for your input in the chat as well. Let's see. Tawan Davis, pretty new listener. Thank you so much for being in the chat as usual. You do bring your thoughts, and that's greatly appreciated as well. Let's see. Am I missing anybody else? And I'm sorry if Steve Bass, what's going on? If I've missed anybody through the chat, thank you. Michael Pless, thank you for taking time to get in the chat and interact with everybody. Lane Johnston, thank you so much for being on. I know that you follow Michael Pless with Real Bucs Talk, and you follow me as well. Your input is very greatly appreciated, so thank you for that. But Mike, I know we've been over an hour. I wanted to get your final thoughts before we jump off here, and just kind of let the fans know what you're thinking, and then I'll give mine. But let me get your final thoughts.
Yeah, I'll be quick. Just enjoy this time right now before we get into training camp, and then once training camp rolls around, just enjoy the team. I mean, this season goes by so fast, so let's just enjoy it, and it's going to be fun. I think we're going to see a different product this season.
Yeah, you know what? I 100% agree with that. And on behalf of myself, and I don't want to speak out of turn, but Real Bucs Talk. I want to thank Bucs Report, Seminole Buccaneer, for coming in here and shouting us out. I appreciate you giving us the opportunity to get our shows on your platform to reach out to Bucs fans that may not know about us. And that's greatly appreciated. And again, guys, if you're not following Real Bucs Talk, at Real Bucs Talk on Twitter, please follow them. You will not be sorry you did. I think the information they provide is beneficial. It's not something that's like, oh, I'm in my feelings, I have to put this out here, but it's well thought out, and they make a really good argument for the things that they put out there. So Real Bucs Talk, be sure to check them out. I love they're my number one podcast to listen to when they are releasing podcasts. So you will start to see us more consistent this as we're getting closer to the season. I don't know about next couple of weeks, but as we get closer to camp, you will start to see us more often. And one last thing I do want to mention: we're all Bucs fans. I don't care if you follow Real Bucs Talk. I don't care if you follow Bucs Report or All Things Bucs. All these are different platforms to give you Buccaneers information. So let's stop with the division. Everybody come together, and we're a team. We want to see this team go to the playoffs, and that's what it should be about. But again, that's pretty much it for me and my co-host Michael Pless, the GM himself. And we're going to go ahead and jump off here.